The sugar crisis in UP has worsened. Mill owners have now served a suspension notice to the state government. This means that crushing operations at sugar mills in UP will not take place in 2014-15. That is if the stalemate continues. Mill owners say the notices come as they are struggling to survive on high cane prices. They also accuse the UP government of coercive action. Remember, as we've been reporting, non-bailable warrants have been issued against several UP mill promoters. Stocks of sugar companies like Dhampur, Dalmia, Dwarikesh ended in the red, though some of the bigger counters like Balrampur Chini, Bajaj Hindustan and even Sri Renuka were up in trade. In fact, Sri Renuka closed about 2% higher, so their losses there were much smaller. But we've been trying to analyze where this crisis could be headed, because remember, this is not the first time that UP sugar mill owners have issued suspension notices. They have done so previously as well. The courts then got involved. The government put pressure on the sugar mill owners, and the sugar mill owners blinked. But this time they say that it's going to be different. Earlier I spoke with Kushagra Bajaj, the chairman and managing director of Bajaj Hindustan, and Vivek Saralgi, the managing director of Balrampur Chini, and asked them where this impasse is headed. If the UP government does not heed to their demands, what could be the road ahead? I started by asking them just that. Listen in.
The only way to go from here is to link the price, sugarcane to sugar price, the Rangarajan formula. Because outside of that, Shireen, there is just no funding available or cash flow available to repair, pay past year's due, pay labor, and to get your factory ready to pay next year, and not to be in this lurch again.
Kushagra, is this now going to be another day where we are going to see the government putting coercive pressure, getting you guys back on the table, some kind of interim arrangement being worked out till the crisis ebbs for a bit, and then we come back to have the same conversation a year later?
Shireen, let's put it this way. Suppose hypothetically that does happen. How does that resolve the problem? Because last year we had said that we won't be able to pay farmers. We haven't. Suppose they make us, hypothetically, based on your thinking, if we make a start on gunpoint, farmers won't even get paid for this last year, and they won't get paid for next year either. So how does that resolve the problem? Until you fix the problem in cane pricing, nothing will get resolved. Secondly, last year they broke one sugar mill owner whom you know, and everybody caved in, which was a strategic blunder. This year we've decided that even if one or two promoters break and decide out of sheer pressure to start, the rest of the mills won't start. Third, last year banks were willing to give certain facilities like working capital, etc. to start. This year, because of the aggravated problem, even those facilities have completely dried up. So what is the possibility from day one, if you start a mill and you're not able to make salary payments, you're not able to make payments to farmers, you're not able to pay interest to bank, what's the point of even starting? Because that will be even a bigger problem from
that's exactly the point
for the state government.
That was exactly my point, Kushagra, that nothing changed. The industry finally caved in, gave in to pressure, and we saw an interim arrangement being worked out, and you guys revoked your suspension notices and got back to work. That's exactly the point that I was trying to make, that are we likely to be faced with the same scenario where again some kind of interim midway solution is worked out and the problem remains unfixed?
Well, they had given a commitment that they will give us the subsidy amount of 5,000 crores, and by April 14 that they will find a linkage formula and implement it by April 14, none of which happened. So we had to go on written promises which the state government gave, and none of which they have honored. So it's unlikely that now we will go on written promises. We will actually want them to come out, pay us, and secondly come out with a notification before anything happens. That's the resolve with which this is done. You don't spend 30,000 crores of investment over the years to actually shut down a business. Nobody does that. This only shows the pathetic financial situation that every company and the entire UP sugar industry is in. Because it's the first time, I think, in the history of modern India that an entire industry has shut down, come live on television, and actually, taken on the government. So it only shows that we have our back completely towards the wall, and there's nothing left to do, because they've taken all the course of action that they have. They filed FIRs against all promoters, all key employees. They've taken over. They've taken possession of all sugar stocks and all inventory. They're harassing all our employees. They've been raided by the police, by the pollution department, by the excise department, across all units and across all manufacturers. So the only thing left for them to do is actually arrest some of the promoters and If that happens, then whichever promoter gets arrested, his bank accounts will be seized overnight by the banks, and no transaction can happen in that company. And that has been conveyed to the state government. So now the ball is squarely on the side of the state government, because even if they make a start, it's going to hurt them even more politically, forget us financially. So because 175 seats out of 403 seats out of MLAs directly get affected in the sugarcane growing areas. So this is going to have a huge political impact also.
So, Mr. Saraogi, at this point in time, the government was meant to set up a committee to look at a cane pricing policy. That hasn't happened. You had demanded that an additional 9 rupees per quintal be given by the government by way of financial assistance. That demand has not been met. You know, we've seen the situation before as well about who blinks first. The courts got involved. The last time you issued a suspension notice, the court then got involved, and finally you had to begin crushing. Do you envisage a similar situation arising this time around as well?
See, Shireen, it's not who blinks first now. Just to put it on the table, assume, you know, there is a deadlock and things don't improve or the linkage doesn't happen. Who's the biggest loser? Let me point out, the biggest loser is us. The promoter, who's put all his assets into the state, who's put all his investment into the state. So his entire investment becomes nil. So A, we are the biggest loser. With us, the entire nation grieves. The farmer grieves, the exchequer grieves, the consumer grieves. So it is something which needs a rationalization for permanence. You cannot have this staccato move of 9 rupees or this and that also, because we don't know the sugar price. You've got to have a linkage formula which then creates visibility, and everybody in the world is ready to invest into visibility.
So let me ask you this, because my understanding is that the cost of production in Uttar Pradesh currently stands at about 35 to 36 rupees, and the cost of sugar or sugar realizations are at about 31.5 rupees per kg. Even if the government were to give in to your second demand, which is to give you 9 rupees additionally per quintal as financial assistance, but hold back on a rational cane pricing policy, will you revoke your suspension notice?
See, Shireen, there is just no ability to move ahead. See, there are two separate things. One is last year's dues, and next you're asking about suspension notice, which is relating to next year's operations. For next year's operations, the only way to move ahead is linkage, because there is no option. It is just, I repeat, the biggest loser is us, but we have no way out. Because the moment you put a price which you can't pay, we see what happens. You get PILs, you get FIRs, you're running around, but you know, there is such a big problem in operations. Banks get scared, all your stakeholders get scared. So it's a no solution if you don't have
Kushagra, you know, before I let you go, let me ask you this. This is a deeply political issue. This is an industry that has been marred by politics, specifically as far as the state of Uttar Pradesh is concerned. That's where your business is. Given the fact that we could perhaps see this crisis breaking, or the state government responding to some of your demands at this point in time, given the kind of pressure and the threats that the industry is wielding, but post that, we could perhaps be faced with a crisis in the future as well. Is this a business that you really want to be in? You have been looking at diversification. You have started the process of diversification. Would you like to stay with this business?
Well, we've been in this business for 89 years, Shireen. So you don't look at a business just on a perspective of 2 or 3 years. Over the last 89 years, it is the first business of the erstwhile conglomerate, United Bajaj Group. This is the business from which almost every other business, whether it was Bajaj Auto, Bajaj Electricals, or any other business, got its seed capital from the sugar business. So it's a business which has generated not extraordinarily income, but very healthy profits over the years. It's only over the last 3 or 4 years that the problem has got aggravated. Today, there's no buyer because everybody is in a shutdown mode. So even if you want to sell, there is no buyer. Secondly, I think,
do you want to sell, Kushagra? Is the question I'm asking you. If you do, would you like to sell at this point in time?
I can categorically say if I'm going through this, there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. I do not want to sell. I categorically mention that.
Let me ask you finally, Vivek Saraogi, Has there been any conversation with the centre? Because through ISMA, you're also trying to get the centre to intervene in this crisis. Has there been any conversation with the centre? And what are your expectations from the central government?
See, we have briefed the centre of our problems. We have told them that, you know, we are like driven to the wall. And we hope the centre would also, you know, put in some intervention. I can just tell you that centre, in its affidavit, it's been made a party in the Allahabad High Court case. The centre has indicated that the problem of arrears is only because of very high cane prices in certain states, and the centre is on record and has advised the state to follow Rangrajan.